Okay, YouTubers, this is Joe from ArtAlienTV. Now today, I'm going to be doing a relook at one of the finds from last year, this one here, and it's called Atlantis City found on Mars. Now, I'm going to show you this on the Gigapan images I put up, but there's a whole lot more. This is just a tiny, tiny part of what was a heavily populated area, I would say, of Mars, and it's in the Atlantis Chaos region. And what I've done is I've downloaded loads of images from the NASA website of this area, and I've been studying it. I've only just started doing it really, again, this area, and I found loads and loads of stuff. And basically what I did, I've got this image here. I'm just going to show you a clip of that now, very briefly, because this doesn't show up that well until you add contrast to the image, like this, okay? And then we have clearly what looks to be a city area, and we have, just here, a dome in the middle of the city area here, which I'm going to show you with the magnifier. Just here, see? There's a dome. And we've got multiple structures here. And they're quite astonishing, really. And there's something sticking up here. There's another larger structure here. You could go on for hours looking at this, but what I did in my usual way, I thought, well, if there's buildings here, there must be other buildings nearby. For this to be real and not just some random shapes in the side of a mountain here, there must be others nearby to verify it. And this is often the case on the moon or Mars and all over the place. To verify something, you need to find something else very similar to it in the nearby terrain or on the nearby terrain. And that's what we have here. So what I did, I've got the source image from this video, and I uploaded it to my Gigapan site. Now I've done 3 versions of this. This is the lighter one, right? This is a darker one where you can really see the city here. And I've done an even darker one, which is really dark, which even shows it even more, okay? And like I said before, you're going to need something like a magnifying glass. This one's called Magnifying Glass Hover Zoom. It's a Chrome extension, okay? So go into your Chrome extensions, if you use Chrome, and you can download it from there, and it attaches to your browser, and you can use it whenever you like when you're online, basically. If you use different browsers, there probably are similar ones or other versions of the same thing for Firefox and other stuff as well, okay? But here we have it. Here's the city, and we got the famous dome here, which is so cool. I just love that little dome there with a point on top, just there. You can see the point. Now, what I've done is I've been searching the whole area. There, this is where the city area is, next to this, what would have been probably a little lake here, this area. If you look at it in the darker one, you can really see that a lot better. So I'm not going to keep flicking through all of these because it's going to take too long otherwise. So for the main part, I'm going to be using the lighter one here. This is better for generally looking around, but when you want to see contours and shadows and things in the ground, it really helps if you darken the image up, like I've done. Let me show you some of the other things. There's some more up here that seem to be structures up here. And if we look on the darker one here, you should be able to see them better. You go up above the crater. This is the main crater in the area. You go above this crater. We have a square crater here, right? And we have these square structures here, okay? Just here. There's a whole bunch of them bunched together. They're all over the place. So this whole area, it seems, we've got lots of natural broken up kind of polygonal shapes in the rock up here. If you look up here, a lot of this is natural, of course, but then we have an actual city lower down, or a town, I should say. This isn't really a city size. This is only about 1 or 2 kilometers across here. The measure on here is actually quite accurate. If we look at that, that part of the city or town is 0.5 kilometer. And there are other parts across here. But I'm not going to go through all of that today because there's so much of this stuff. You can look at it yourself and have a browse around and zoom in and out. Use a magnifier if you've got one, preferably a digital one, because what will happen with a normal one, you can use a normal one of course, a normal one will enlarge the pixels on the screen as well, which will kind of distort what you're looking at. Digital ones don't do that because they're not looking at the screen, they're looking at the image. Okay, so they don't pixelate. So there we are. Now, so we got that town area, and we got some other structures up here. Now, when you look further down, you're going to be amazed, because what we have here is a load of ruins here, right? Now, if those of you who've been watching my videos, I did this video a while ago, a week or two ago. I think it was this one, Mars Village by Square Building Complex. Now, in this one, not only do we have a square building complex, but near there, over to the right of it, there's a village which is covered in sand, and there's a great big crater in it. Now, the crater looks a lot newer than the buried village, which says to me the village may have been destroyed by an aerial bombardment. Okay, now I do recommend you watch this video, because I didn't point that out in the video much, but if you read the description and everything, it says in there, and it also says on the Gigapan links to this one, if you follow the links. So basically, I think this whole area was bombed from above, and I think this is also true of this area at Atlantis Chaos. Now, this may all look fairly random to you, okay, in the lighter one here. So let's go to the darker one. And what we'll see now is that there are a lot more structures visible when you darken the image. When you darken the contrast and bring it down, you can see the shadows a lot more, and it brings them out. And you can actually quite clearly see that this whole area here was absolutely littered in rectangular structures, and you can see a load of them. I'm just going to draw on some of them for you with this. Now, bear with me on this. This is not great, this thing. We have square structures down here, a whole row of them in a row here. We have a long outer wall here. We have another square there, another one here, another one here. There's another one here, another one here. Now, we got craters in this area as well. We got right-angled walls. We got multiple structures. Okay, they're all over this area. And what I think this was another part of the city. But these are much, much bigger. Now, I'm not saying this is one structure. What I'm saying is there was an outer kind of part to this town, and this is the outer perimeter wall here, and we had multiple structures inside it. Okay, let's get rid of that. And if I show you with the magnifier here, I'll point out some of them. We've got a rectangular structure here. We've got another one here, coming down. There's another one here. We've got multiple rectangles and crosses. We've got wall structures here which have all collapsed and been destroyed. We have a crater right in the middle of it, which looks like it may be fresher or newer than the structures, or this may have actually destroyed part of this city or town area from above. And we have multiple craters around the outside of it as well. Now, this is quite chaotic. This is why it's called Atlantis Chaos. Whoever named it that probably saw what the crazy structures on the ground and decided to call it that, because it really does look like actual intelligent structures here. We've got another rectangular one here, and we've got square, what look a bit like square craters, but they're not. They're structures which have collapsed. There's another crater here which looks quite fresh. If you look at the material around the edge of the crater, it's much brighter and higher in luminosity than a lot of the rest of the area, which means that this is fairly recent compared to the city structures here. You've got multiple squares here. There's squares all over this area. Let's go to the lighter one here. They don't look so good, you can't see them so well here, but what you can see is a lot more general stuff in the lighter one here. But we got squares all over the place. There's square structures here. There's dozens of them, and they're quite large. The actual whole town area, I think, came right round down here to here. And I thought, wow, that's amazing. We've got all these multiple rectangular structures, right? And I thought, well, that's cool. So we got a town to the north up here, and a town here, which may be part of the same city area, different suburb or different area, district. And then I came down to here and I saw this. And I was like, oh my God, look at that. That, to me, looks like a fortress. And this is huge. This is, if you measure it, it actually, it's about 1 kilometre because it goes right across to here. This also has craters in it, which have backfilled in sand. There's also a crater here, right in the middle of this one here. The crater right there, it seems. And there's other craters here around it. Now, what this reminded me of was Monte Cassino in Italy from World War II, where you had a huge monastery, which was bombed from above and not completely destroyed, but turned into ruins, and was then defended for many months by the German troops that were there against the British and the Americans, and then the Polish and everyone else had a go at it. Everyone tried to take it, and it was a hellish nightmare, because of course when you destroy a structure, you turn it into a natural fortress. It's a bit like when you destroy a city, you turn it into a natural fortress, which is easy to defend. And what this reminded me of almost is some of the castles you see in the UK and around the world. We've got a lot of castles here in Wales and in the West Country, all over this country. It's been almost carved out of this mountainous part here, but we have a rectangular defensive wall around the outside, which is ruined here. You can clearly see that. It's a defensive structure. And I think it came all the way across to here. We've got another part to it, right? Joined to it here. So that was cool. Now, if you look at it in the other one, this is the darker one. Look at that outer wall. You can see the outer wall. You can see the other structure over here. There's a kind of part joining this to that part. And there's another part here. It seems to have lots of square and sort of rectilinear parts inside of it, which look like buildings, ruined buildings, right? And you can really see these craters around it. And I thought, wow, that's amazing. This looks like a fortress, right? Let's go back to the lighter one. You can actually see the perimeter wall here, goes right round. It goes to here, and then right round here, and you can actually see where some of it's collapsed. Just look at it with the magnifier. You've got a rectangular structure there, you've got the wall coming round the outside, like this. It's collapsed down here, and then it goes right round. So we have a defensive perimeter. Now, like I said in that video I was on about earlier, this video here, Mars Village and Square Building Complex, a lot of the villages, I think, had a defensive perimeter, much like Iron Age forts. Now, if you look at this on the right here, this is an Iron Age fort, right? We've got a bunch of these in the UK. They're thousands of years old. They go back, they're pre-Roman, okay? They go back many thousands of years. I don't know exactly how old this one is, but it goes way back. And they're basically made using the local topography, and then you carve out the defensive perimeter from the mud, and then you pile mud up as well to make the defensive walls around the outside. And this would have had houses and structures on top of it as well, like a village. And some of these are absolutely huge. There's some in the UK which are massive, right? This is a Roman one, which is rectangular. And there's other ones here. There's other types of fortresses here. You've got more modern ones from the sort of 12th, 13th century fortresses. There's loads of them in Wales. When our country was invaded by the Normans, they built loads and loads of castles around the country. and they're quite amazing, some of them, and I've always loved them. There's something wonderful about castles and the construction and the shapes and the architecture, and there's thousands of them in Europe and all over the world, and there's all different types. I'm not going to go into all that now, but this one is rectangular, and you can see here that it was joined to this one, right? So I recommend you look at that with your magnifier and have a really good look at it. I will put some clips of these things in at the end as well, so if you haven't got one, you will see close-ups of all this. I've got all this stuff clipped and ready to go, so I'll be showing you that at the end of the video. Like, as always, the last 2 minutes of every video I do contain all the clips. There's another one over here, which is triangular. Now this may be natural, but to me, it's too symmetrical, really, I think, to be a natural structure, this one. What they were doing, like a lot of cultures used to do on Earth, is utilising the natural mountainous terrain and carving into it and making defensive structures from the natural terrain, which is always easier than building something from scratch. If you have the right technology, you can just carve out of the mountain, and you have up here multiple square structures around the side here. It's all kind of buried. This is a weird one. I mean, look at the shape of that. I mean, there's stuff all over here. There's another thing here. This may be natural, but this seems to have a perimeter wall as well. A lot of these structures have perimeter walls. And then there's all these here. There's loads of craters here. I think some of these were structures as well. You've got lots of rectangles in the ground here, and rectangular structures that are completely ruined. It looks like a giant city area, this whole image, that was attacked from above. And when we come down here, we got this, which looks like another fortress or something similar. Now, what's cool about this one is it lines up exactly with the bottom of the page here. Now, this image is orientated due north, okay? So up is north. And this actually lines up. We got a perimeter kind of wall or defensive structure around the outside here. You can see this wall here. We have a square structure here, which is at a funny angle, which looks like it's subsided or something, and multiple structures buried in the bottom. It looks extremely artificial to me, because we have this kind of polygon shape. We've got a side there, and then these sides here, which are straight, pretty straight. We've got multiple structures in here that look like ruins along this edge, and down here we got what look like ruined structures. This is crazy. And what's really cool about this, we've got a perimeter wall here that comes round up here. We've got this wall here. There's multiple rectangles in here. There's rectangular structures here which are all kind of collapsed and destroyed. But this perimeter wall, if you follow it up, it comes to here. You follow it all the way up here. Right, it joins to this outer wall, and then it joins to this triangular structure here. Right? This is insane. Which also has a perimeter defensive structure around the outside, it seems. And it seems to have ruins in it as well. So I really recommend you look at a lot of this stuff with your magnifier, if you get a chance, because you can see there's a rectangular structure here. There's outer walls that have collapsed that go right round. It joins to this wall here, and some of these walls or defensive perimeter walls are massive. Right? Look how wide some of this stuff is. So I think they were utilising the natural topography and then carving into it, like here. But this is insane. I mean, have you ever seen anything like that? It's absolutely incredible. The size and scale of these things is really large. As you can see, the measure on this is pretty accurate, okay? Because these images are scaled from the satellite images data. So this looks like a huge defensive structure of some sort, or partially collapsed. I wonder whether this whole thing actually had a roof on it, or there was a roof over part of this that's collapsed inwards. It's absolutely insane. See, what they may have been doing is finding these sort of natural mountainous structures and then just using explosives to actually blow holes in it. I mean, this may even be part of a quarry or something we're looking at here. They're bound to have quarried some of the stone, but they would have cut straight out of it. And there's a rectangular structure here as well, just here. We'll see that quite clearly. There's a rectangle with a smaller rectangle joined to it there. Just there, okay? Let's look with a magnifier. These are everywhere. I mean, if I was to show you all the rectangular structures in this image, I would be here all day. So there are multiple things here, and some of these down here also look like they might be artificial, but a lot of it's natural, of course. But when you start finding these rectangular structures in the ground, especially up here, they're everywhere, and they're quite large. This whole area here, right? Let's go to the darker one. There's that rectangular fortress. Absolutely insane. Look at it. Look at that exterior wall there. Go right round. Now, what were they protecting themselves from? Now, I have found evidence of lots of battlefield debris and stuff lying around on Mars, in Gale Crater especially, things like weapons and dead soldiers and stuff like that all over the place. Helmets. There are tanks, there are cannons, there are all sorts of old weaponry lying around, as well as more modern weaponry. So they were obviously a very warlike culture, but I do wonder whether they were protecting themselves from something else as well. And I think there were some very large and quite dangerous animals living on Mars as well. And I've shown what look like dinosaur remains as well on my channel. Giant lizards and what you would call dinosaurs, I suppose. Large reptiles. A lot of them were bipedal. In other words, they ran around on two legs like Tyrannosaurus rexes on Earth. And I think they may have coexisted with some of these cultures, unlike on Earth, where they mostly died out before, or all died out before we came along, supposedly, right? On Mars, I think they coexisted not only with other warring factions of people on Mars from different areas, but also with rather dangerous animals that would have predated on the people living there. So they had to have armoured or citadel structures which were protected from these threats. Okay? So they lived in citadels and walled cities and towns and villages with ramparts, much like I showed you here. So the villages would have been like this, a lot of them. Often fairly randomly shaped, but with perimeter walls, built on high ground, so you could see stuff coming. And they also had more conventional kind of squarish or rectangular citadel structures or castles, like we're seeing. Okay, like this. This is an actual castle or fortress. And when you start looking around, you've got to start wondering whether a lot of these structures were actually built like that. This is the bit I really like up here, this one here, where we've got all these right angles and rectangles in the ground, and we've got bomb craters, shell craters in the ground as well. It looks like the whole area was hit from above. So they had aircraft, or somebody had aircraft. We've got multiple gigapans off the same area, so you don't have to download any of this stuff. You don't have to enhance it yourself. You can just look at these gigapans and compare them to each other by having three of them, or two or three of them open at the same time, and you can look at different things more easily in the darker one, and sometimes more easily in the lighter one, okay? I mean, I really could go on forever about this image, because it's absolutely teeming with intelligent structures and grid-like town areas like this. And then we have what seem to be fortresses and multiple intelligent structures like this. Absolutely insane, look at it. Not only is it rectangular, but it has a perimeter wall. But I'm beginning to suspect that a lot of these structures were modified and turned into sort of fortresses and citadels to protect them not only from each other, but from dangerous wild animals that roamed this area, and probably a lot of Mars. And as I've shown on my channel, if you go through my videos on my channel, there are examples of dinosaur type lizard skulls. Some of them are very large indeed, and they would have roamed the planet possibly at the same time, some of them, as the people that lived there. Okay, so check some of my older videos out, because I've got evidence for all this to back it up. There are even things like downed aircraft as well, like this missile, and vehicles and tanks like I've shown here. A lot of you would have seen all these already. They had boats, they had tanks, they had aircraft, they had guns, they had cannons. But there are also, in amongst all these modern things, we also have lots of very ancient things which look like you would find on a Roman site on Earth perhaps, or even older. So we have Iron Age, Bronze Age, and we have modern, okay? Not just on Earth, but on Mars. And often these different things are in the same area. So the same areas were occupied over millennia by different civilizations and reworked and rebuilt on, destroyed and probably rebuilt again. They would have had multiple wars, probably multiple cataclysms way before the nuclear war on Mars that supposedly destroyed everything. I don't think it did destroy everything. I think people survived. We've had cataclysms on Earth where we survived. So there's no reason why they shouldn't have survived also. We should not assume, just because everything we see is destroyed or mostly destroyed, we should not assume that they all were killed. I'm convinced that there must have been survivors, because a lot of these structures go into the ground and they would have had underground areas which were habitable as well. So there we are. Thanks for watching, everybody. Clips coming up now.